in them. The predestined Loire Valley had entered into history at the dawn of the kingdom. On the island of Amboise, Clovis met his rival Alaric before becoming sole master of Gaul and founding the most holy Christian kingdom in Reims. The Norman invasions delivered the final blow to the last structures of Charlemagne's empire. The monarchy withdrew to Paris, abandoning the power to the local nobility. Feudalism emerged out of the disorder and insecurity. The day of the fortified castle had dawned. The Chateau of Angers holds memories of the redoubtable Counts of Anjou, the most famous of whom was Fulk Nera, the Black Falcon, who, sometime around the year 1000, studded his conquests with a bristling array of innumerable towers. In the 13th century, one of his descendants, Henri Plantagenet, became King of England and master of half of France. In a final duel, Philip Augustus, King of France, recaptured from King Richard the Lion-Hearted all his fortresses. Angers, Chinon, and Loches. What these 17 towers evoke is hence not the mightiness of the Counts of Anjou. Rather, it is King Louis IX, or Saint Louis, the man who built the Chateau. A new dynasty, descended from Saint Louis, settled in Anjou. The most illustrious personage in this line of rulers who governed Naples, Lorraine, and Provence was good King René. He it was who adorned Anjou's crown with its loveliest jewel, the series of 70 tapestries depicting the apocalypse produced from 1375 to 1380. This high warp tapestry is one of the world's most famous. Its presence here has made Anjou into a capital of ancient and modern tapestry. Rebuilding of Angers by the King of France was a prelude to the monarchy's future installation in the Loire country. The illustrious city of Chinon, a short distance away upstream on the banks of the Vienne River, is fraught with memories of Joan of Arc, together with evidence of the most gigantic layout of medieval military architecture. With its 3 juxtaposed chateaux, Chinon was the greatest stronghold in ancient France. 2 major feudal houses, Anjou and Blois, were disputing the Loire country between them, and the origins of most of the feudal castles lay in the need to defend these great fiefs. But an endless four-cornered game was played between the monarchy, the Duchy of Brittany, and the 2 fiefs of Anjou and Blois. It was a strange and complex game whose outcome is a matter of record. Turn by turn, the French king destroyed the power of the Counts of Blois, of the Dukes of Brittany, and of the Counts of Anjou, who had become the kings of England. Chinon was a major stronghold in a major period of history, but it was also the setting that witnessed the full cycle of the Anglo-French War. It went from Henry II Plantagenet, who died there, to Joan of Arc, who met Charles VII there for the first time. It was in front of this fireplace, the sole vestige of the great hall in which the court gathered, that occurred the most famous scene in all of France's history: the singling out of Charles VII by Joan of Arc from among the throng of courtiers. On this spot, the young King Charles VII received the visit of the humble shepherdess, who announced that, in the name of the King of Heaven, she had come to assure him that he was the rightful heir to the throne of France. It was from Chinon that, shortly thereafter, she set forth at the head of a small army which delivered Orléans, thereby opening the way for Charles VII to be crowned in Reims and for Joan to be burnt at the stake in Rouen. But let us skim over history, the chateaux and the waterways, to find King Charles VII ensconced at Loches on the Indre River. Fulknera's ancient fortress had long been an issue in the struggle between the kings of France and the Plantagenets, with the bitter sieges launched by Richard the Lion-Hearted and Philip Augustus. After its final conquest, it became one of the monarchy's major strongholds. At that time, Loches, surrounded by at least 1 kilometer of fortified enclosure walls, was also a prison, and the kings strove to make it impregnable. The chateau became both celebrated and redoubtable. Celebrated for its illustrious inmates, but also redoubtable because many of them perished there. The admirable church of Saint-Ours, a collegiate church located within the citadel, one of Romanesque architecture's most singular structures with its double pyramid of conical domes, also holds recollections of Joan of Arc, who prayed here on her way to meet the king. Charles VII eventually made Loches into a chateau for his court and set about embellishing it. The attractive royal dwellings that he erected ushered in a lighter, airier concept of residential abodes. These were the first that opened out onto terraces. History and its footnotes joined forces at Loches, and the face of Agnès Sorel, whose sumptuous gisant this is, evokes the changes in living patterns, styles, and customs that occurred during the waning Middle Ages. For it was with Charles VII and Agnès, his favorite, that there began the court life of a monarchy which had regained its status as Europe's most powerful. It is also the face of Agnès Sorel, the first of the official mistresses who were subsequently kept by the kings of France, that is supposed to have been the model for this Madonna and Child ascribed to the school of Jean Fouquet. The Chateau of Saumur, an elegant medieval fortress, looks as if miraculously risen straight out of the illuminations in the famed Book of Hours of the Duc de Berry. For a long time, Saumur, a seemingly fragile yet redoubtable fort, was one of the Loire country's strategic keys and was the object of many wars waged between the counts of Anjou and Blois. In the wake of the building of the huge fortress of Angers, Saumur partially shed its military role and increasingly became recognized as one of the royal country houses of the Renaissance. Today, the chateau houses a fine museum of decorative art. King René of Anjou, who was also a poet and a musician, sang of Saumur as a Chateau d'amour. The jousts and tournaments that he organized here are perhaps the remote origins of Saumur's destiny as a capital of equitation, with its famous Cadre Noir horses and a museum of the horse. Louis XI scarcely had time to devote to the construction of buildings, yet we are indebted to him for l'Angers, built to defend the Loire against potential attacks from Brittany. Paradoxically enough, the Chateau of l'Angers later served as the setting for the marriage of Charles VIII, Louis XI's son, to Anne de Bretagne. This admirable chateau, a symbolic link between France and Brittany, seems to have been built only to provide a background for this single celebration. The Chateau of l'Angers is one of the last fortresses of the waning Middle Ages. Along with the oldest keep in France, it holds memories of the inevitable Fulk Néra, who built it sometime around the year 1000. The admirable outer wall is eminently representative of medieval military architecture in all its power and severity. The evolution of architecture and decoration is closely linked to social and political mutations. The major event of the late 15th century was the extinction of the great feudal houses. England eventually lost all its continental possessions. Peace at last had come. L'Angers, constructed in between two worlds, reveals on its inner facade the gentler artistry of the manor houses that were to follow. The interior of the chateau witnessed the first blooming of the Renaissance, which was beginning to bask in the signs of luxury and comfort. Rid of its enemies at home, the monarchy gradually abandoned the fortified castle and settled into the prestigious dwellings where it held forth for a whole century. The chateaux became decorated as befitted houses whose occupants enjoyed full leisure to indulge in the pleasures of art and the pastimes of peace. There was an abundance of art objects, of richly adorned furniture, wardrobes, chests, sideboards, fine faience and ceramic ware, and, most importantly,